It's the Blue Boat Cafe, a little bit of Wonkish, a whole lot of fun. I'm David Schellenberg, along with Rachel Wigster. We are the co-chairs in Canada's capital region of Ottawa. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, David.
And what's happening over at your part of the city of Ottawa?
I mean, we often talk about the weather, but because we're only really blocks apart, we have the same weather. So it's clouding over, but It's been a beautiful, beautiful spring day.
It really is. I went for a walk a little bit earlier, and I'm surrounded by all these restaurants. And for whatever reason, when I went for a walk, it seemed to be the moment that everybody was baking bread. And it's just interesting when you walk down a downtown city street and you just smell those lovely lunch smells, no matter where you go. And
absolutely.
And you think, I'm not in the city. I'm in a much cooler place.
When I lived in Baltimore near the harbor, we lived near a bread bakery. I have to tell you, it was the worst bread ever, but it smelled so good. The air would just be filled. I mean, there's no smell like the smell of baking bread. Oh, I have to go make some.
How is it the worst bread ever?
It was just, it was like the cheapest, no flavor, all salt, it wasn't very good bread. But you know what? It still smelled like incredible baking bread.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, that's bread talk for the day.
The bread talk. We can get on to sourdough another time.
Oh, okay. Now sourdough. So I've got a little bakery just downstairs, and it's just a tiny little place. And it's a Japanese man who specializes in French baking.
Oh man, that sounds wonderful.
It's very, very traditional. But one of the things he makes is a sourdough. And I have gone down and bought his buns when there's a special Christmas or Easter dinner or something. And then I will take them to the friend's house that I'm going to, and then people sit around and eat all his buns. And never get around to the actual meal. And I always feel I always feel slightly guilty when somebody has made a beautiful meal and then everybody fills up on buns, but they're really good.
Shame on you. But I'm all in favor.
All right, who's with us today?
Park that conversation for another time. Yep. Today, it's lovely. We are joined by some DA leaders. They are the leaders of Democrats Abroad's newest country committee, that's Kenya. And we have joining us today Robyn Emerson, who is the chair, and Mohamed Ahmed, who is the treasurer. Welcome, Robyn and Mohamed.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Rachel and David. And man, those buns in that bakery sounds wonderful.
He barely speaks English, so it's always an interesting conversation to order something because you have to, explain exactly what you want.
That's awesome.
Hello, Mohamed. How is your baking going?
Not much of a baker. Hi, Rachel. Hi, David.
It's nice to have you join us in the cafe, the virtual cafe, exactly. Where we talk about nothing but food.
Mohamed, you can say, I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. I'm not a baker, I'm a eater.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's right. That's awesome. So, DA Kenya, we've been wanting to talk to you guys for a long time because, you are our newest country committee, and we'd like to hear how it came about and what you actually.
We better start with our standard question.
We're out of practice. Yes, that's what I was just realizing. Our standard question. Go for it, David.
So, Robyn, let's start with you. Tell us, first of all, where in the world you are. Tell us how you ended up in this particular part of the world. Tell us where you vote. And then tell us why you're still in this part of the world.
Okay. All right. So I am in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm right in the smack of the heart of the city, just a few minutes away from what would be our White House, where our president lives. And Mohamed might challenge me, but I'll say it's one of the best areas of Nairobi. It's such a fun place. And let's see, what was the other question? What brought me here?
Yeah, what brought you there?
Yeah, what brought me here? Well, that is I'd love to share this story. So right after let's see, when was that? I hate to say this, 9/11. Yeah. Right after 9/11. And I was just looking at when I was watching the planes go into the Pentagon and the Twin Towers, I just asked myself, what in the world is their opinion of Americans that would have them think that this is an appropriate match or response?
Right.
And so I looked in the back seat of the car where I had my children. I was taking them to school that morning, and I said, these are going to be the Americans that are going to be shaping the worldview. And I then set out to take 600 young people around the world to 8 different countries for them to go and hear what people thought about Americans.
Wow.
And one of those places was to Kenya. We lived here for 6 months with about 20 teenagers. And I took those teenagers back home, and many of their parents said, "Where is Johnny? I can't find Elizabeth. Who you brought back to me is not the same teenager I sent."
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
And so anyhow, so after my children graduated from high school, I thought, well, there's no, I really want to go and live outside of the States. I've had a chance to see that world. And I loved Senegal. I love Guatemala. I love India. I love Brazil. But I wasn't so good at learning new languages. And Kenya was an easy transition for me. Unfortunately, colonization did that.
Right.
So that's what brought me here.
Yeah.
Wow.
So where did you actually grow up?
Well, my last port of call was Austin, Texas, and that is where I vote. I was born in Jersey, reared in Lexington, Kentucky, studied university in Baton Rouge, worked in Portland for several years, and my last port of call and where my parents are is Austin, Texas.
Wow. You've been all over the place. When David and I started speaking at the same time, I was about to ask, because you were talking about the easier linguistic transition. What about converting to driving on the other side of the road?
Well, there you go. Well, I have a story for that one too, but let me just say, you really can learn how to drive on the wrong side of the road at 3 a.m. when your other driver is not able to do so.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that opens up a whole lot of questions. But it's Mohamed's turn.
True.
All right, Mohamed.
So I am currently on a bit further from Robyn. I am in a neighborhood just about 10 minutes away from the airport here in Nairobi. Yeah, I came to Kenya very later than when Robyn came. I arrived January 2021, so that was in the middle of COVID-19. I have family here, and my family and I just felt it was the best time to move everything, moving virtual. I was 16 back then, so I was still back in high school. We moved to Nairobi to get closer to family during very hard times, and I have been here since then. I vote in Columbus, Ohio, and that's where I grew up. I was born in Nairobi, so I have that background. I grew up in Columbus. Columbus is my hometown. I love Columbus. Yeah. And that's where I voted. So, yeah.
So I guess there's a reversal question for you then. What brought your family to the United States?
Yeah, my parents they were very young when the Somali Civil War started. So they first became refugees in Kenya, and then finally immigrating to the United States, settling all over the country, but deciding to settle in Ohio.
Right.
And that's where they have been for the past, 15, close to now 20 years, but we've been in Nairobi for the past 3. So yeah, very long residents of Ohio, but yeah, have that background of immigrants, war, refugees. And I'm really thankful for them, giving me this opportunity.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, we Democrats Abroad members can speak to the experience of belonging to more than one country. It gives you a completely different worldview, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So tell us, actually, I'm curious to know what brought each of you to Democrats Abroad. So Robyn, I guess it's your turn. How did you find DA and become involved?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, Rachel. think so. Actually, I don't know how I found out about it. I was in 2012. I was working with some other Americans here. We were we were organizing. We were, getting ready. That was such an exciting time, I think, for everyone.
Yeah.
And we were just trying to make certain that how do we still stay connected, feel like we have a voice and a say? Oh, now it's coming to me, exactly who introduced me. And one of the people that was on our team that was working with us, he used to participate in DA in Italy. And as we were loose in our organizing, we weren't anything formal. We were in people's sitting rooms. We were holding parties. We were raising money. We were doing all sorts of things. At some point, I think it clicked with him like, oh, wait a minute, there is an organization that we could be channeling this effort and this energy into.
Oh, interesting.
And so I think we all said, okay, let's get through this presidential cycle, and then we will, turn to what does a formal structure look like. So that's kind of how I first learned of Democrats Abroad, and that would be where I first learned.
Interesting. Wow. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mohamed. What about you?
My story, I would say, goes back to Donald Trump. So, right. I am young green, right, 12 years old. This is back in the 2016 presidential election. That's when I started getting at least interested in politics, right? This crazy lunatic is running for president. And I wasn't really that interested until election night. I remember going to sleep and waking up and my father telling me, oh, Donald Trump got elected. Mm-hmm. And it was this following year, right, that I really started paying attention. There was a special election close to my district in Ohio that a Republican won, but very, very narrowly in what was a safe Republican district. And then there was the 2018, right, re-election of Sherrod Brown to the Senate. So all of that, I was planning to be a bit more involved in 2020 with first in the Democratic primary, then later when the presidential candidate was chosen. But COVID changed that plan and we moved to Kenya. Mm-hmm. And that first year, I was just adapting to Kenya, but I still wanted to be involved in politics, whether local. And I just started searching. I didn't know about Democrats Abroad. I didn't even know you guys existed, right? Until I believe it was a link that says, oh, Americans Abroad. I think it was Vote from Abroad. And that led me to Democrats Abroad. So this is 2022. I joined Democrats Abroad, but was not very active until early 2023 when I became a bit active in DA Kenya, and I decided to run for member at large for the SCORM at our AGM. And that's where I met DA Kenya members. That's where I met Robyn and other really amazing people. Mm-hmm. That was my introduction to Democrats Abroad.
Wonderful.
That's how it works. It was Donald Trump that got me involved as well. When he stood on that escalator and when glided into the world of politics, I was basically sitting on the couch yelling at the TV and decided I had to do something. And I did the exact same thing as you. I just got online and started Googling stuff and came across Democrats Abroad. And all of a sudden you're in.
Yeah, David, I had like a similar, that night we were at the U.S. ambassador holds these watch parties every, well, let me say, if it's a Democratic administration ambassador and invites so many people to come out. I went that night to that party and there was thousands of people, and I was watching those numbers, and I went to my husband and I said, I need to leave. I cannot see these results publicly. I can't be anywhere public while these results are going the direction they were going. Yeah. And we left and I think we went to a small bar that was fully stocked, and I just wept. I got in a fetal position on the corner of that bar. It was my husband. He's Kenyan. My husband is Kenyan, and he knew the ramifications on a global scale of what that was going to mean.
Right.
And it took me a week to get out of what I felt like was a gut punch. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe our country did that.
Yeah,
or we did that. Let me say that. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt the same.
And it's interesting to look back at it. And part of that, I mean, when we're talking politics, was like there was this weird Hillary Clinton email scandal and stuff that came out of that. And we've discussed this in other politics. It's like sometimes you feel Democrats maybe don't get out and vote for candidates because there's some weird little imperfection in them, and so we are looking for perfections and we don't vote, and sometimes you got to feel that it's our own fault that Donald Trump won that. Mohamed, do you ever have that feeling?
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes I battle with them within me, right? I look for perfections, but you have to remember politicians are human, right? You can advocate for what you stand for. You can look for perfection, but I don't think you're going to find perfection, right? Being human means you're not perfect.
Yeah.
But what right now I choose in a candidate is the positions they take, right? That tells you how they're going to act as president, how they're going to act as your congressman, senator, and that's how I vote, right? What positions what do you stand on abortion? What do you stand on gun violence? What do you stand on, right? Taxing the rich? What do you stand on, lowering the taxes for working families?
Mm-hmm.
How do you support unions? All the stuff that are important to me, that's what I look in a candidate. And if I agree with them 70%, that might be even good enough in an election. And
that's right. Your number, is it 70%? Yep.
70's good.
I don't have a number that I'm looking for. I just trust my gut into, is this enough for me to support this candidate?
Yeah.
Right, because no other human is ever going to agree with you 100% of the time. So, I mean, I look for someone who's honorable and who I trust to weigh the pros and cons of whatever decision they make. And absolutely with you, I look for an alignment on the fundamental issues. But you can't expect a politician to agree with you all the time. They won't.
Yeah, and then I think that's a good point. I think the already agreement being there, that's one thing. But I also look for candidates that are willing to listen, if you will, and perhaps be informed or swayed. Absolutely. Or, that is malleable and that can respond to your input as valid. All of that, even if you don't agree, but if you can acknowledge, my experience and what's important to me is valid, all of that makes a difference.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. So I don't want to, this is such a good, this is such good stuff already, but I'm really interested to know, I had the experience with our local chapter, the one that David and I now co-chair within DA, of bringing it back from the brink. When I got involved, there had been a chapter in my area, but it had shrunk down to 2 members. And I had the experience of working with particularly 4 other people to bring it back. But it sounds like there was no existing infrastructure in Kenya when you started getting involved, and you created your country committee basically from scratch. Is that accurate? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, well, like I said, and from 2012, and we just went on, and I think it was loosely engaged and back and forth. But we finally I guess, got pulled our socks up together enough to get the momentum and enough, like you said, you need the convening power and some people that are willing to maintain the process for us to get recognized as a country committee. And then finally in 2021 we did, and it was really, it's quite exciting and exhilarating. And as well, of course, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? This is like a baby that's gonna need to be fed, and she's gonna need clothes, and she might want to go to university one day.
Yep. I know what you mean.
And so we, with the people that, and the beauty is it's like people from various places and various walks of and various backgrounds, a lawyer and a 72-year-old woman who's retired here, and various other people with communication skills and backgrounds. And there are networks and communities that I would never find myself personally in, that they expose me to and open doors to, and I think it's just been really quite amazing. And at the same time, being a American here in Africa, I think is unique and distinct from many of the other countries where our country committees exist, for various reasons. It might be similar in some regards, but let me say this for one is there's probably, of course, there are a lot of Americans here with large, corporations and so forth that's here. And of course, this is an outpost for a lot of UN headquarters. UN Habitat is here. UNEP is here. Many others are headquarters here in Nairobi.
Right.
And then there's just so much more. International NGOs are here. All of those people are here for one various reason. And then there's such a large number of Americans of African descent that are moving from the States and are moving to Africa for a different experience of living as a person of an African descent. And Africa provides them a space, in our opinion, to be free. You don't walk down the street and your race doesn't stand out. So there's such a large number of Americans of African descent that are moving across the continent.
Wow.
Now, the part about that is that they want to disassociate themselves from the American process. Mm-hmm. And so it is then our duty is to say why and build such a strong case for them to stay active, to participate in that process. So it has been quite interesting to have those conversations, to build our unique selling point, if you were to actually have democracy as a unique selling point, as we speak to these various distinct people of American voters here in Kenya. So we started the Kenya one, but at the same time, I also co-founded the Democrats Abroad Africa Committee.
Oh, cool.
Which came up because there's only in the 54 countries across Africa, we only have 2 country committees, ours in South Africa. And there are, again, American voters across the continent in various places that don't have that outlet of a structure. So that EMEA, for many, many years, it's been EMEA. Yep. I guess it's EMEA. And so we want to bring the A of the Africa out strong. And so we champion for the non-country committees for them to have representation. And if you might be aware that there's now structure for people in non-country committees to have representative and voting voice. And so we really pushed for that so that we can do that, and also the ability to coalesce countries together if it's regional or they have other like or similar experience, so that we can support them in various areas. So it's been quite interesting, and I feel like we're just at the beginning, and we haven't done all that we hope to have done or accomplished everything that we hope to have accomplished. But the intention and the goal is still there to increase Africa's presence and the perspective of American voters here on this continent.
Absolutely. It's breathtaking. And the idea that the people there could, I mean, that's probably one of your selling points, that don't turn your back on being involved in U.S. politics, because maybe you can help transform the U.S. so you can walk down the street and have your race not stand out.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. And just to clarify for listeners who aren't familiar, the entity you're referring to, EMEA, is one of Democrats Abroad's 3 global regions, and it stands for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And as you say, Africa's stuck on the end. It hasn't really had as prominent a voice as some of the other areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing.
And one of the things that, Mohamed is being very, very humble.
I know we have to ask Mohamed what he does.
But no, what I want to say is I'm just so proud and so excited about Mohamed's presence and existence in our Democrats Abroad and DACE, as we call ourselves. He is so representative of the whole. I mean, he came in on our country committee at 18 years old, and he didn't come in as an observer. He didn't come in as a side somebody on the sidelines. He came in strong, ready to take leadership. He's ascended, and he has offered that in so many various ways. And he was one, I think Mohamed may have been one of the youngest voters in Democrats Abroad to vote at the recent global presidential primary, where he did his first presidential voting.
Oh,
and he's studying political science. I think he probably would say he's been influenced by what he talked about, watching politics and so forth. And this is exactly what I'm just so excited about Mohamed for so many ways. I didn't want him to not come out on who this young man is. He's just extraordinary.
Well, Mohamed, have you voted in an election yet?
So take it away, Mohamed.
He just did.
Yeah, first let me say thank you to Robyn. Yes, so I did vote. My first election was the midterms, 2022. That was the first election. But as Robyn said, this is my first presidential election, which holds, a different kind of status. I did vote in the DA primary and will vote in the election. But yeah, very, I think, exciting. Even though I am worried about a lot of stuff, it's also very exciting to be a part of, democracy, because I got to watch it for many years and not be a part of it because I was too young.
Right.
And, you're not only, shouting about, to politicians or why is this happening? I get to be part of, and we fix this. And that includes voting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell
Wonderful.
us, now I'm curious about the course you're taking. You're a political science student at an international university or a Kenyan university? No,
I am community college in Michigan, Washtenaw Community College. That's where I study political science, and will be soon transferring to the Ohio State University in the fall, finish off my bachelor.
Wow.
And so when you talk to other students in your class, what kind of questions do they ask you?
I think, first of all, a lot of the students in my class are virtual students, but they're mainly based in the US, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we had, I think, 1 or 2 based in Europe, but majority of them being based in the US, right? They often ask, how are you still involved, right, from thousands of miles away? And again, this is where I thank Democrats Abroad, because it gives me this opportunity to be involved, even though I have sat through a lot of meetings. But it's still really exciting that I get to do this from my computer, with my very spotty internet, and speak to people in Japan, Costa Rica, the UK, and talk about stuff that we care about, issues that we care about, how we can get out the vote, how we can come together and make our voice stronger. And I think that's what I share with them, that even though Democrats Abroad, which they have asked me about, is right very widespread throughout the world.
Yes.
We're still a very tight-knit community, even though we're mostly right through Zoom. That's where we are. But very tight-knit community.
You're right. And you have your fingers in many Democrats Abroad pies. Do you want to tell us a little of the specific work you've been doing with DA?
Yeah. So, as you said, right, treasurer for DA Kenya. I didn't get started off as treasurer. As I said, right, I was member at large to the executive committee, working with the executive committee until September, I believe. That's when our treasurer had to go back to the US. Robyn pushed me to be the interim. Right. She pushed me to be the interim treasurer.
I was no. I didn't push. No, it was a really great opportunity, and I thought you were the best candidate for it. No pushing, and no, I didn't push you to be our GPP manager. And
you just laid out the case.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I became treasurer end of September. But yeah, I joined the steering committee of the Youth Caucus. Back when I first became member at large, Miguel reached out to me through Robyn and through email directly to me, saying that he needed somebody on the steering committee from Africa. Right. He, again, one of the more amazing people I've worked, right, in Democrats Abroad. He likes his steering committee to be geographically diverse. And he asked me to be on the steering committee to represent Africa. And I was really honored, right? And so I joined
the Global Youth
Caucus.
Right. Okay. Just want to make sure we mention.
Oh, we all know Miguel. Miguel has crashed in my spare room. So
Miguel is a friend of the pod.
Yeah.
But Miguel is a friend of pretty much everybody in DA. So there you go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then the Black Caucus, the Global Black Caucus. This was back when Jazz was still the chair.
Yes.
I reached out to him because at that time, right, I had still fresh memories of George Floyd and right, Breonna Taylor and just racism in the United States. So when I found out about the Global Black Caucus, I thought that was the way I was going to be mostly involved in Democrats Abroad. So I reached out to Jazz and right, we started talking. Although he had to leave, he put me on the steering committee. And right, we worked. Right now, we have Angela Forbes as our interim chair. She's a really amazing, right, interim chair, although a very busy person. She's really, she's leading us through an election year. So we're really thankful for that.
That's wonderful.
And
she's the founder of the caucus, I believe. The Global Black Caucus was Angela's. Yeah.
She is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sorry not to interrupt, but just to give her credit.
And we were really thankful when she came back to be interim chair. Again, she's a really busy person as communication director.
Correct.
For Democrats Abroad and holding several other positions. I'm definitely not giving enough credit right to her for but yeah, that right, Democrats Abroad Global Black Caucus was, I think, up to now, it feels like home, right? I get to debate, I get to, talk about, and people really understand about what I'm talking about, whether it's racism in the United States or what's happening in terms of policing and all the stuff that really do matter to me as a young person, as a Black young person. And then, last but definitely not least, the ECCC. This was quite recent, a few months ago. Dana Frelling, again, another amazing person, reached out to me.
Another amazing person, yeah.
And said that she wanted to have a young person on the steering committee. So yeah, 3 steering committee positions in 3 different caucuses/councils.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah,
but that's not your full list, is it?
No.
Well, don't stop. You're on a roll. Tell us everything.
I mean, right? Those are what Democrats, as right, Robyn mentioned, the GPP. She had to take over a bit because I had some family situation going on. But the GPP planning in Kenya, I think this was I believe this was our first GPP in Kenya, right, Robyn?
It was the first time American voters in Kenya could come and vote in person.
Amazing. Yay!
It was quite exciting, and people, that just, sorry, it's a lot of work preparing for it.
Yeah.
And so, and we're kind of duty bound to do it as a country committee.
Oh yes, that was not a very exciting GPP, but it needed to be done.
Yeah, David and I were managers for hours as well.
Like it was an arduous, burden to do it. And then you're like, why are we doing this? Well, you have these big dreams. You're like, you know what? Let's just set a box on some table somewhere and just say that we did it. The day was so amazing.
Yep.
And people came and they were so excited and they would just love to see the red, white, and blue and to be able to put that ballot into a box. And then you have this duty of trusted, counting and getting it right and having that person's, voting rights be counted, and it was just so honorable, and such a great opportunity and an honor to have made that available.
Absolutely. Yeah. We were cursing the amount of work going into ours, but yes, it was a really fun day.
That's what I'm saying.
And you're right. The excitement that people come with, and people just come out of the woodwork and they're like, I didn't know I could vote in person. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So,
even when there's no drama in the outcome.
There was no drama, but yet, people really wanted to vote, and it was quite lovely to see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's coming up next for DA Kenya? Have you got some events planned for over the next couple of months?
Well, you know what? We are, I suspect, going to manage with everyone at this period. We are gearing up to get out all of the votes, as many votes as possible. We have a strategy. We believe that there's probably close to, and I'm so thankful for the new data report. I believe that Merrill, a member, a leader in Democrats Abroad, presented, that gives us some actual numbers of Americans that are living in various countries, and how we can compare that with the membership that's on the rolls. It's rumored that there's tens of 15 to 20,000 Americans that do live in Kenya, and we have on our roster, on our rolls, I think I just wanted to reconfirm what we do have is 379 members.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
That is, and I know every country committee has some relative percentage of the actual, Americans that are there to the number that are their membership base. But we do have a strategy and a goal. We want to triple that. We want to at least triple that. We want to at least get over 1,000 by the general election. So we're reaching out and coming up with strategies, thinking about the different constituencies and the different groups and ways that we can unconventionally reach out to American voters here and encourage them. I suspect, just like our GOTV coordinator is also saying, that I suspect with several things that are happening, the conventions coming down the pipe as well, there'll be greater interest over the summer. And so we're getting ready to train members so that we can do our phone banking, which is so fun. We held phone banking in the last presidential. We looked like Ma Bell or something.
Yeah.
We looked like we were actually, pulling the wires out and putting them in. How many people we had in a room all together in the presidential primary. It was so fun. And so I'm hoping that we can also get that back up and be back together. We're not in a COVID season or anything anymore. And so we can do more and more. The other thing is that we have quite a number of members that are outside of Nairobi. So Nairobi is our capital city, but there are several that are outside in our coastal town and some in our northern areas. And I think even Mohamed, I'd love to see if we can get out there and just if we move those numbers just up slightly, do some small outreach in those various areas. That's another thing that I want us to get to. I know it's a part of our strategy to see how we can do that. We do something here also for outreach that we are often at these a local mall where Americans are regularly, and we'll pitch up a table and be there on a Saturday and a Sunday. We'll have a rotation of Americans that volunteer, and we're there, and we just have red, white, and blue, and we just saying any questions about voting, stop. And that's been very effective for us to do that around. We do that between like July to September. We do this like every weekend. They call them table activations here, and that's been very effective. So we're going to be looking to see what kind of information do we need to have and prepare for those tables going from July to September. And then, as you know, after that, that's when our phone banking really gets into now get the ballot in. I hate to say locked and loaded because it's a gun context, and I don't want to, refer to something we're grappling with as a country. But you can't exercise this right if you haven't gotten yourself in a position where you can, something you might just wake up, something might piss you off in mid-October, and you're like, darn it, I need to make certain that my ballot is in or whatever. But if you've waited to the last minute, it might be that too late. And so we want you to, whenever that pissophity does come to you, we want you to be ready to say, I've got to get my ballot in, and this must count. This is too much on the line.
Yeah.
Well, from Kenya,
Absolutely.
how much time do you need to get your ballot in so you know it works?
If
You
you're
know
mailing?
what? Oh my gosh, David! It's so there's last presidential election and in 2016 we did these campaigns. We worked with freight companies like DHL and FedEx to get reduced prices, and many people were shipping over their ballots, paying upwards of $25, $50, $100, depending on the time frame to do that. Of course, the embassy does do drop-offs where you can do that, but at some point, a lot of people and their confidence is my ballot going to get there on time through that means? Wasn't strong enough, and many people would send us copies of their DHL receipts and making their payments. And so we've got to find a way. That's another thing. We've got to find a way. That's a key interest of ours, to find a way, because we don't have postal mail. So I mean, I was sending somebody on a motorcycle probably about 150 kilometers away from here to give them information about how they can make certain that they get their ballot somewhere, and then get on it. But we just know during that season we have to be ready to have all the means of getting those ballots in at our fingertips, and it makes a difference. Democrats abroad, Zoom vote to call in to get support of
the Zoom rooms.
The Zoom rooms are extremely helpful. At any time, we can ask on behalf of a member, or we direct a member there to get that information and get the clarification that they need. Those books that we've had these books that look like the phone books where we would thumb through which county are you in,
I've seen those books too. Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah, exactly. And we were. And those are the books that we had on hand in the malls. And then we would just say, which county are you in? Which whatever. Take a picture of this. Make certain that you have the information, because each county each state is different, and they change the process of voting. And we know that, after, goodness gracious, who knows what many of these secretaries of states are trying to do to clamp down on mail-in ballots. And so it's going to be incumbent on us to be on top of the new processes, the new ways that our votes can be received, so they aren't spoiled, they don't get turned away.
But that's one of the huge advantages that Democrats Abroad offers. If our members register through votefromabroad.org, all of that thinking and that vigilance has been done for them, and they can request their ballots by email in every state. They can't send it back by email to every state, but many of them you can, and that makes a huge difference. So they shouldn't have to feel they have to start from scratch, because it's all tailor-made for each voter when they go to votefromabroad.org. So that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that also we have planned that I really like, last October, October 2023, we did kind of like meet the press with, hosts of there's a local Kenyan American, Lily, who also is Democrats Abroad.
Nice.
We had Kennedy Wandera, who is the Foreign Press Association Africa president and also Voice of America. And then Robyn. So and the topic was, unshakable democratic values in the era of trumped up politics. And we talked about, everything from term limit to Donald Trump, to African climate summit that happened a few weeks before we held this right here in Nairobi. So this is going to turn into a series that we're going to hold multiple times before the general election. And I'm really excited for. We had a great turnout. This was a perfect time to reach out to the membership. We had as an XCOM about, I believe, 20 members that we had to call and just inform them, hey, we're holding this event. Are you able to come? Send them the information. And it was a really successful event. And I hope to see that in the future events that we plan to hold.
Fantastic. And Mohamed, this is a bit of a change of a subject, but just to make sure we talk about it, there's something else you're working on. I gather you're part of the gun violence task force, which I don't know how many Democrats Abroad members actually know we have one.
Yeah, so this is not as a task force as DA task force. This is a kind of a mini task force under the Youth Caucus. It was something the Youth Caucus has been discussing way before I joined. Not the task force, but just gun violence and how important it is as an issue to the youth. So, speaking with Miguel, I spoke to Martha, and I just came up with the idea around October to form this. So we formed it under the Youth Caucus, and our first event was in December. It was kind of like a launch of the task force. It was the anniversary of the Sandy Hook shooting, and we had Congressman Maxwell Frost, who himself is a gun violence survivor and somebody who ran on gun violence to become the first Gen Z congressman. So it was the perfect person to have, to talk about gun violence. What is Congress doing? What is the Biden administration doing? What has already been done? And just how this is becoming, a public health crisis.
Yes.
And just public crisis. Because, this is very much something that's unique to the United States.
And an issue that the youth of the country are leading on, I think.
Yeah. And, going back again to Maxwell Frost, he came through an organization called March for Our Lives, which were, I don't know if you remember the Parkland shooting in Florida, They led massive protests in Florida up to even Washington, D.C. And it's an organization that still exists and that's still, there's several more student demand actions. I believe it's called Moms Demand Actions. So there's other massive organizations that are also doing amazing work. I find it really, amazing and inspiring to see young people taking charge and making sure, right, they're not just part of the protest, they're leading it to make sure that people in power know this issue is affecting them, right? Their friends are the ones that are dying. Students are being traumatized. I had to go to lockdown drills in middle school and high school, right? And I remember I was still in high school when the Paxton shooting happened, and I was really scared because, what if this happens to my high school next? So this is a growing crisis that we have to deal with. Absolutely.
Things have to change, and it's inspiring to see the young people leading that charge.
Right. So, Mohamed, when you talk to, your friends in Kenya who are not American and they look at you and your involvement with the United States, are they impressed, or do they think you're just sort of crazy for getting involved with U.S. politics?
I mean, yes and no. And I guess this is because of the politics here in Kenya, but I'm not going to go into that much. I think it's because of how they see the United States because of Trump and those 4 years, right? They know Biden is different, but a lot of stuff is going on where they're like, how can you continue being in, Democrats abroad, being a part of this? And the way I always answer is, if I get out, then I am not going to have a voice, right? You can't hope that somebody else is going to speak up for what you believe in. You can't hope for, right, somebody else is going to fix this issue. You have to be part of that solution. Even if, right, there's stuff that I disagree with my own party, there's stuff that I disagree with, right, my president or, right, the Democratic candidate, I am still going to be part of it because I'd rather be part of it and disagree with it than be out of it. And, when the general election comes, right, think, what would I have done, to make sure Donald Trump is not the president? What could I have done to make sure this issue is, right, on the top of the agenda for my congressmen and my senators? Because I was not involved. That's why I always answer to them.
Right. Absolutely. It's you hear sometimes people say, if you don't vote, you don't get to complain.
Yeah.
Is there anything either of you would like to tell us about DA Kenya or what you're doing yourselves that you haven't had a chance to say?
Robyn?
Let's see. I don't know if there's anything else I could talk for quite some time.
I inspire other people living around the world to get involved.
Yeah, and we'll have you back for a second episode sometime.
Yeah, that would be great. And I can give this sense for encouragement for involvement. Democrats abroad is quite a remarkable organization. It is 100% by volunteers, and the level of commitment and interest in upholding something which is still like a human experiment of democracy, and to continue to create the ways and the pathways that people can participate, they can give their voice, and where we are in coming from spaces and places where you can often see what happens when that is clamped down, if you will, living in perhaps where we are residentially in places where that might be clamped down. This is for me, my execution of, okay, this is what this can look like. This is why this is so necessary as an experiment for us to continue to say, if all of us got together and we all could find some common ground and we kept pushing for something, then that might be for a greater good, because we also know that the forces of evil can also pull together and get together. But the question is can we get beyond being a single issue individuals and move to, that's what I find interesting, and move to how can I organize enough that it can move us all in one direction. And that's people might joke about the Democratic Party being a group of organized, disorganized people. that's kind of the uniqueness of it is that, in Texas we have like the what do they call it? The something owl caucus, if you will, people that love the owls. They have their own caucuses. And then there were these other, salamanders, those who love the salamanders, caucus, to kind of to say if, you have an interest, you have something that's important to you, but there's something that does bind us. And is it possible for us to continue to work together so that it can create this space enough for all of us to find that space here? And so that's what I do find so appealing to Democrats Abroad. Although as a volunteer, you can say, man, I'm spending a lot of time on this. There's it looks like there's work, but then it's like, wait a minute, I'm actually holding something together here, if you will. It's like if that atlas, the man with the map on his
the globe on his, yep.
Exactly. It's like I'm actually here holding up a side of the tent, if you will. I'm actually holding a portion of it up, and my being here matters, and it makes a difference. And I think there's some organizations where you can't feel that or you can't see it, but being a part of Democrats Abroad gives you that front row seat of full impact, and an exertion of in response to your input. That's kind of how I see it. It's like the input I put in, I can see it, and it does give a reward and a gratification, right away.
Beautifully put. Eloquent. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful.
That was amazing. You're a tent pole.
Yeah, exactly. Tent pole holder. yeah, either one. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Mohamed, what about you? Is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I would say first, something that I find really interesting is working together. Right. I really think, you have to, as Robyn said, come together. There's something that holds us, and that's where we can start. And then we move forward even on the issues that divide us. There is somewhere in the middle that we can come together, right? Where the entire party can say, okay, this is where we can stand. And I like that the Youth Caucus, has been leading on that kind of collaboration or working together. I know you had Quentin here, right, on the podcast.
Yep. We did.
Right, the Youth Caucus joining Young Democrats of America. You had Annika and Henry with High School Democrats of America. Again, all amazing people, right? I am working currently with college Democrats and VFA and seeing how we can tap into students abroad, right? Students who are studying abroad for the general election. Coming together, right? These organizations are based in the US, but I feel like there's something that, is very similar to Democrats Abroad because they have members in all 50 states. That's, even though Democrats Abroad, we are our own, right, chapter and our own state, right, level organization, we all have members from all states. And working together is the only way, right, college Democrats know which students are going to study abroad. And that's going to be a really helpful, right, data to Democrats Abroad country committees and VFA, so that you get every American, number one, that they know they can vote, and number two, right, you make sure that they do vote and they have everything that they need. Right, so I'm gonna end with that. Right, collaboration is needed in everything, I believe. Working together, find the middle. I think we are facing a great threat, and this is me saying it at 19 years old. Right, I just lived 19 years old, but I truly don't want to see Donald Trump in office. And I know I'm going to compromise my positions to, some level to make sure, the Democrats win the election come November, and, make sure that Donald Trump is in prison, right? I mean, I know we're recording this on, the 15th. This is the first, criminal case of Donald Trump's officially starting today. So I hope, right, that the end of this presidential election for Trump is not the White House, but, a prison cell.
The big house.
Deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And a Kenyan woman won the Boston Marathon this morning.
Yay!
What a day.
What a day. I mean, that's not a surprise, but
I was about to say, yeah, I was just about to go there, but it's still very, 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 very good news. They're just saying that Trump has been falling asleep in court today. So who's sleeping? Who's sleepy? Who's sleepy?
a sleepyhead.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Well, it's every day a president is in a criminal court case.
That's something.
So anyhow.
Yeah. But yes, yeah. But oh my goodness, Robyn, Emerson, Mohamed Ahmed, thank you so much. I mean, this has been in so long in the works. Robyn, I think you and I started speaking about having you on the podcast more than 2 years ago, but it was worth the wait.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was awesome.
And thank you for all you do.
Thank you. We'll pass it on to our members.
Please do. Please do. I'll just do a couple of PSAs. First, if you live outside the U.S., go to votefromabroad.org to register with your voting state and request your ballot all in one step. And if you want to find all of our episodes of the Blue Vote Cafe, just visit bluevotecafe.com. I'm Rachel Oikster with David Schellenberg in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for listening to Democrats Abroad, the Blue Vote Cafe.